morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on Chai Time. Language is a powerful tool that shapes our understanding of the world and our relationships with others. Pronouns play a critical role in language by allowing us to refer to people without using their names. As society becomes more aware of individuals' diverse experiences and identities, it is important to understand pronouns, their several types, and ways to use them respectfully. Joining me this morning is Misbah Lakhani, Daya's Outreach Coordinator. Together, we will explore the various aspects of pronouns, their significance in fostering inclusivity, and why they are helpful for everyone, regardless of their relationship with the LGBTQ plus community. Good morning, Misbah. How are you doing this morning?
Morning. I'm doing so fantastic.
Awesome. I'm so excited. It's the first time I'm meeting you, and I'm going to get to know more about you, your work, and everything else.
Yeah, and it's so exciting to be on radio. It feels like a childhood dream come true. So,
cool.
Yeah.
That's good. So how long have you been with Daya?
I'm actually pretty recent to Daya. I only joined June 17th, so it's been a month and some change, but I'm very excited and very happy to be involved in all different aspects.
Yes, and I'm excited too because we have been connecting right before the hurricane.
Yeah.
And then, we didn't get a chance to meet and talk, but now today is the day.
Today is indeed the day. It's a glorious one.
Yes. So let's begin with, tell us about yourself and your role at Daya.
Yeah. So my name's Misbah. My pronouns are they, them. I graduated with a feminist and gender studies major at Colorado College pretty recently. And that's kind of the lens that I use in my outreach work, where I try to be very social justice oriented, try to be inclusive of everybody. And that's kind of what I do as my role as outreach coordinator, where I try to bring everybody who may be underserved, even in our underserved population, to us and be able to help them be welcomed to access our resources. So that's kind of the lens that I do. I also just read, and that's kind of my main hobby is that I read. I watch a lot of Netflix. I was watching Love Island USA like everybody else has been in the Gen Z community.
Where'd you find the time to watch? There's so much going on in Daya.
Yeah. You make time when it's really, really interesting. And the tea is just too good.
Awesome. So, with your background in feminist and gender studies, can you give us an overview of the discussion around pronouns that have become such an important topic in recent years?
Yeah, of course. So pronouns have been popping up within the last 10 years, very much so. This conversation has gone around and around. And one of the big things that I want to emphasize is that we've been using pronouns since the English language was created, right?
Correct.
We use she, we use he, we even use they in contexts where, when you don't know somebody's gender, where it's like the postman, if you refer to the postman, right? They haven't come. Like the postman isn't here, the mail isn't here. And we kind of use gender neutral pronouns already in our language. And so also one of the things so beautiful about gender nonconforming pronouns and just gender variance is that we've actually also, this is not the first iteration of like using they them as something that we're doing that's new, right? So there was this history that's not long lost, but about zir or just like neo-pronouns. It's very, very cool and exciting. But what I wanted to emphasize is that it really has been something where pronouns have become so important, especially during this time where legislation has really, really cracked down on people who are LGBTQ. And I think it's really, really important now more than ever to kind of protect what it means to protect other people who are minorities, who are underserved, who are being oppressed in very similar ways than people such as us, where it's, there's so many immigration laws, and you think about how much that's been happening too. And they're happening all simultaneously, and kind of pronouns is one of those ways where you can kind of give an opportunity to learn more about one another and really form some form of like, connection, some form of like solidarity in a way. And it's a very simple way to learn, you know, about another community that's also experiencing the same things that you are.
Yeah. So why do you think gender pronouns are so controversial?
I think a lot of things that are new become controversial.
Yeah.
And especially when you don't understand something where it's new to you, then it becomes very controversial. And especially in the media, how it's kind of portrayed as like something weird or something dangerous, especially in some of our more Texas-oriented media. And I think that's part of the reason why. But I think the newness of it, if we really walk with it and learn something new, it can really help all of our communities, including those that are both South Asian and gender nonconforming or gender variant. So really, it's like, it's controversial and at the expense of those who are kind of the most vulnerable in our communities.
Okay. So do you feel that, now that people are, referring to their pronouns, and do you feel that that people are more comfortable now? Like it's becoming like a normal thing?
Yeah, I think I'm very excited and happy to be in this time of the world where everybody is so willing and like, even in like their uncomfort, they're so willing and able and wanting to learn.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to see this shift where everybody is trying to meet each other where they're at and really grow together. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to really see.
That's great. So how does talking about pronouns get us closer to everyone being safe?
Yeah. So I think safety, a lot of the times we think about what does it mean to feel welcome, to feel included, to feel wanted, to feel like you can trust another person, right?
Yeah.
And if somebody, pronouns is like one of those very small yet very, very meaningful things where if you adopt them, you can automatically make somebody feel safe because you see them, you understand them, you want them to be heard, and you are articulating all of that by just using somebody's correct pronouns. And it's very, very, very meaningful and very deep of a relationship and deep creation of safety, especially in a time again where there's all these legislations being passed about creating unsafe environments.
Yeah. So, I've had conversations with regards to pronouns, and I have people come and say that I don't mind, addressing, person by using their pronouns or things like that. But sometimes there's, they're hesitant because they don't want to disrespect someone, or they feel that, that person might get offended if they use the wrong pronouns. So do you think that that is an issue, or, we should just kind of ways to get through that, over that?
I think, again, the thing is that if you're like talking to somebody one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very obvious when somebody makes a mistake versus like when somebody wants to actually say the wrong thing, right? And those two things, when you mess up, that means that you're trying at least that you're trying and that you want to be at a place where you don't make that mistake again, right? And people see that. People appreciate that. People can empathize, give grace, give patience to that. And I think that's like, the issue is not that you're hesitating. The issue is that some people just don't want to even try, That's the real issue. The hesitation, sure. I at least welcome discomfort. I welcome hesitations. I welcome slip ups, because if we can go through that moment and be like, have that moment, we just talk about it. And then after you actually correct yourself, or at least that means that you've created a safe enough environment where I could be like I could be saying that, hey, this is something that you did that was wrong, or you could be accountable to me and being like, I did this wrong. And that creates that trust, that level of trust and safety. Whereas sometimes you don't even get that, you know?
Yeah. It's still a very sensitive issue, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. But hopefully, so much has changed, right?
Yeah.
And it's always been, we're on the road to positive changes. So
Exactly.
hopefully down the road, when it comes to this, we are able to feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. And it's always going to happen through all of these stumbles, you know?
Correct. So why is it important for people at Daya to talk about pronouns?
Yeah. For us, we really want to create a welcoming environment and safe environment for all. So that does mean trans people. That does mean LGBTQ populations. That means genuinely anybody who walks through our door who wants and needs our resources that we offer. And part of it really is addressing the person where they are, who they are, how they are. And part of that includes then pronouns. If we want somebody again to feel safe, to feel like they can trust us and have our resources and trust us alongside us the process of a very long road to recovery, sometimes a long road to healing.
Yeah.
We don't want to have them feel unsafe even when they're escaping an unsafe situation.
Yeah.
So that's really our motto when it comes to that.
Daya has come a long way too, right?
Yeah.
Because it has evolved.
Indeed.
The organization itself has evolved a lot, I think, right?
Yeah. And we're very excited because some people have been there for a decade and they have come along with this change. And some people are newer. It can be like a month in and everybody in between. And so I think it's really, really, really exciting to again be in a space where everybody from all different walks of life are really coming together for this mission and are really just again trying to grow in a place to just help everybody and create a safe environment for all.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how does it help the work that Daya does?
Yeah. Again, we want to end gender-based violence, right? So that is the goal, is that we don't want gender-based violence. We don't want violence at all. And one of these ways that we do it, again, is very small, but how do we end violence is to create safe spaces everywhere. Yeah. And so by coming here, by using pronouns, by doing outreach that is very, very inclusive and inclusive to everybody. That's something that we're trying to do in order to create safer spaces in Houston in general and to create, again, safety in places where there's rampant gender-based violence everywhere these days. And especially after COVID, the rates have been rising and they continue to rise. And how do we kind of mitigate that? We're doing everything that we can. And that includes pronouns.
Yeah. So does this affect the minority community more, or is it you would just say, no, it's overall?
I think, gender-based violence a lot of the times is the statistics sometimes show that trans people experience violence at more higher rates, or they experience, or minorities, disabled people, they have a higher risk of facing gender-based violence or just domestic violence, sexual assault in general. And it's not because that we're more prone to violence or that we are more violent. It's because there's so many systems that we're navigating. Okay. And our communities are so under-resourced, and it's because we don't have sometimes the level of safety that other people have when you're fighting transphobia, when you're fighting homophobia, and you're fighting systemic oppression when it comes to racism, when it comes to sexism. You have all of these systems fighting at you. It's very difficult then sometimes to get the resources that you need. Yeah. And so while the statistics may show that trans people are facing violence at higher rates, or queer people are, or disabled people are, it's not because there's more violence there. It's because the world is acting in a way where where there's less resources for those who need the most help.
Yeah. So the resources are available at Daya?
Yeah, we are free and confidential resource. Through our helpline, you can get free mental health resources, free legal resources, financial, we do it all. We will sit with you to help you fill out a form, to finding jobs, to therapy, to literally whatever the person in need needs. And it's all whatever they decide that that's what they need in the moment to feel safe, to feel secure, and to go on this long journey of healing.
Yeah. And y'all do have people on the other line that to have, to translate, like there are different
Indeed.
languages.
Yeah, we have about at least 14, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
And we can translate. We have a amazing helpline coordinator advocate who basically can translate just push of a button, and whatever language that the other person needs, we can interpret and translate and interact with that person at that time in real time.
Okay.
So it's whatever language it really is.
Oh, okay. And can you share the helpline with us on air?
Yeah, I should really have this number memorized at this point. I've said it so often, and yet I stumble because the first 6 numbers are the same as my work phone number, so I always just confuse them all. But the confidential helpline is 713-981-7645. Again, the helpline number is 713-981-7645.
Awesome. Thank you. So like you were talking about, how, at DIA, you'll encourage using pronouns, right? So, can one refuse to use gender pronouns in the workplace?
Yes. Actually, that's also something, that is again some people don't have pronouns. They just want to be referred to as their name. And that's a very common thing in more trans and queer spaces at large, but that is something that they could do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we would refer to them by their name.
Yeah. You make it sound so simple.
Because it is.
But yet, people make it so complicated, right?
Yeah, because again, there's so much fear around something new that it's very simple. It's a very small change, and it takes a lot of energy, a lot of time to kind of rewire our brains in order to have this happen. Yeah.
I guess people forget that, they have their choices. They can choose to do it or not, right? But I don't know why when something new is introduced or something is more talked about, or, they feel like they are pressured to do it. And, that shouldn't be the case, because you can make your own choices, right?
Exactly.
But I just feel sometimes that's how people feel, like, cause I know, I've had people who are very pro to it. They're like, oh, this is great because this encourages unity and, stuff like that. And then I have, on the other hand, people who get so irritated and like, what is the need for all of this? Why put so much emphasis on pronouns? We never had this before. Why now? And, there's so much of like irritability and kind of, I wouldn't say really anger, but it's just that, they're just so irritated because they feel, within the community, the LGBTQ community itself, there's so much emphasis on it. And, especially during Pride Month, we talk so much about Pride Month, and even the retail stores, they're promoting Pride Month and all. And we have people who say like, why? But then it's like, why don't you read the history? Like, get to know about the struggles and the challenges, right? Everyone, a lot of people went through that. And so, and Pride Month, we always have y'all, and you'll talk about it and encourage people to learn more, and, hope people can support and have a better understanding.
Yeah, exactly. I think something very important that you said is that looking at the history, a lot of the times when you see who were the people fighting for all of these rights that we have now, it has been queer people of color. Like, it's always been Black and brown people who are queer who ended up fighting at the front lines all the time. And so even in that example, you kind of see how our race, our ethnicity, our immigration status, like some of them were immigrants, some of them were at various points of life, and looking at the history, you can see how interconnected we all are. And it's very, very important then to be in that unity, be in like solidarity is what I say a lot when it comes to social justice, but be in solidarity with one another and at least understand, right?
Right. So do you think like, this, I'm just taking your opinion.
Yeah.
How early should, we start kind of talking about pronouns and all age wise? Like, kids.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes it's as early as possible. That's always my thing, where it's like, if a child is able to understand that concept and really, or maybe like hear something on TV, on social media, I feel like younger and younger ages, and as the generations go on, know about these things.
Like, they know more.
Like, even people that are in middle school now knew more than I did when I was there, and I'm not even that much older than them.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very, I would really just say, if a child comes to you and is asking all of these questions that are weird, instead of like shutting them down and just being like, this is not the time, maybe if they're curious, talk about it with them, right? Or as early as possible, in the sense that if they can understand, like, some concepts are just too big and broad for a 5-year-old to really understand. But once they have that kind of understanding and are curious and are in that space of like learning more about the world, I would say that time, whenever that time is for a child.
Because media does a lot of that, right?
Exactly.
There's so much going on in the media itself, and kids have access to that. So sometimes they're so curious because they are not exposed to it, and it's not a normal conversation that you have amongst your friends or your family. So of course it's more like, okay, what is this, right? So as parents, how can they like have this conversation in a simple way?
I think I always suggest YouTube videos. I feel like learning first and learning how to talk about it is the best way to talk about it, so that you are well resourced to have that conversation. And depending on who the child is, because I've had people that I know in my life who came out to their parents as trans at the age of 13. And so 13-year-olds are having this conversation of just, I'm not who you think I am, right? Or who you've seen me as growing up. And that conversation is going to go very differently than a child being, what is a pronoun? And is just curious about what is happening, what are they hearing about. So depending also on what kind of conversation you're having, I think really the basic principles of it is to be resourced, learn as much as you can, ask for resources amongst people that you know, and then also lead with empathy and curiosity always. Those are always my suggestions. I will never know how to, I'm not a therapist, I'm not,
but that's great advice.
Expert.
Yeah, that's great advice, because sometimes we just don't know how to, out of the blue, kids just come up with questions out of the blue, and you're just caught off guard, and you're like,
yeah. And
they're just like, go play.
Yeah. But I think also one thing that my parents really did is that whenever I would ask why for like a bajillion times, being like, why? So why is that? So why is that? They always like actually answered me. And I think that's how I turned out the way that I did. Where it's like they were always willing to just either hand me a book, because I was a big reader.
Yeah.
So they just handed me a book and they're like, go figure it out yourself. Or they would always answer okay, so why is that? So why? And coming alongside somebody and having to answer that for your child and also for yourself, kind of, because it's like, I have not been asked this, I don't know the answer, but thinking about it and like being patient and gentle and empathy and curiosity, all of these things, taking it and just saying, okay, so really, why is that? And then having an answer for yourself and being able to answer that for your child really, again, connects you to that child in a way where it's like, I love my parents, I love them, they did a phenomenal job with me. So yeah, I would just say, again, always answering your child's questions and really, really thinking about giving a right answer to them.
Yeah, and that's such a great tip that you know, like what your parents did. They, you know, because they know you love reading, so giving you books and for you to just read and understand it and things. So that is a great thing, something that the child has some kind of an interest and, you know, geared towards that way. So, you know, that was great what your parents did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love them.
Shut up, Mom. They're so proud of you, I'm sure. I hope they're watching.
I don't even know if they are. They're at work.
Oh, okay. They can watch it later too. No, but that's a great thing. And even I guess as parents, even if you don't have the answer right away, you can always, you know, say, that's a good question. Let me, you know, find it out myself or something. Because sometimes when you shun the kid away, then it's like, it's in a negative way. That's how I feel.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, how are some ways we can all help create a safer, more inclusive community?
Yeah. Again, theme of the topic, pronouns, using somebody's correct pronouns, asking for pronouns, offering yours in a space when you are in a big group or just in a group of more than two, and allowing different people to express themselves in different ways. And also, I would say inclusive environments in general, it's a lot of investment into our own communities and communities that are similar to yours or that you're interested in being in community with. So that means shopping locally, which we do all the time at like the local Hillcroft and Harwin intersection. That's us creating a more inclusive environment sometimes because we're feeding into our own community and we're solidifying that foundation of trust and empathy and doing all of those things that we already kind of do because we're such collectivist, community-oriented people. And to do that amongst other businesses, amongst other people, sharing resources, and just being on Instagram sometimes, just sharing something to your story that you thought somebody else could benefit from. That's also creating a safer community because you're thinking about others and how they would want, what they would want, what could help them, how to care for others. Like those basic principles that we all have really create the inclusive community that we all want.
That's so great. All right, so let's go on a short break. And when we return, we will continue our conversation with Misbah Lakhani from Daya, Houston. This is Chai Time, 103.5 Hum FM. Welcome back to Chai Time on 103.5 Hum FM. I am in conversation with Misbah Lakhani from Daya, Houston. And we have been talking about pronouns, which is such an interesting topic because, you know, this is so... it's so important and it's so talked about nowadays, right? We've never really touched on pronouns and, you know, why, it is important to do that. And at Daya, y'all are doing such a phenomenal job just at the workplace itself. So Ms. tell me, are there any upcoming events?
You know, funny you should ask that. We actually have our annual gala luncheon happening September 29th, and some tickets are still for sale. So if y'all want, y'all can join us, have lunch, hear about our phenomenal speakers that are two local authors of children's novels, and just also hear from a current client. Potentially also hear from our new ED and have just the time of our lives with us. And yeah, so that's happening September 29th and tickets are on sale on our website. So you should probably go check it out if you can.
Yeah, your tickets get sold out pretty fast.
Yeah.
Like this time when you put it on social media, I mean, it was sold out really quickly.
Yeah. So we only have like a few individual tickets and raffle items also. So if you can't make it to the luncheon, or if it's sold out because we are just so popular, you can actually also donate and kind of participate in our raffle.
Yeah.
So you should check out our gala website / our website in general. and find out more details.
Yeah, it's so great to see the community, come and support Daya, because you'll do such phenomenal work for our community and for the victims out there who's facing domestic violence or even sexual assault. So that's just amazing. And let me tell the listeners, those who have never been for their luncheon, it's really, really fun. We at Chai Time Girls have been attending this event for several years now, and the guest speakers that come on there, or anyone who comes and shares their story also has been quite an eye opener. Last year also it was the story about this young man, and he had gone through so much domestic violence as well with his partner, and the positive change, the challenges he went through. The story was really, really touching, and it was nice to see and meet him in person. And we would never think, right? Whenever we talk about domestic violence, it's always referred to as for women, and even children, right? Child abuse, but we would never think a male, would be going through that as well. So that is an eye opener as well for so many.
So, so happy that you mentioned that, because I think often when, again, we talk about what does inclusive look like, right? And what does it mean to think about who goes through violence. Men go through, just like, honestly, the statistics say a little bit less, but that's also those who report, right?
Correct.
And so I genuinely sometimes I think men must be going through the same amount of violence, but how silence functions and how masculinity even functions, of just, you have to be tough, you have to be strong, you have to really just take it all in, even though it's genuinely abuse and you shouldn't have to do that alone. Yeah. We also want to provide a safe space for them. When it comes to a lot of events that happen, a lot of the times, again, domestic violence spaces typically use she, because 75% or something to that extent, survivors of domestic abuse are all women. So the default pronoun even in there is she that we use. Okay. And so thinking about that, the he's of the world who are also facing domestic violence sometimes get silenced, because what if that's not a space for me because it's a she space, Yeah. And so inclusivity also functions not just for trans and queer people, but also for masculine and male identifying people too. And so I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to think about, this male survivor. He's South Asian first, and then secondly, to come out, and, tell his family and friends and all of that is already hard. It's very, very difficult. And then being in a relationship and, going through domestic violence, being abused, it's just unimaginable, because what he's has been going through for when he was young I can't even imagine what all the struggles he's been going through, and it continues. So it's not like it's not like he got a break, he found someone, he found love, and it's an happy ending. I mean, right, it is now, but he had to go through so many struggles and challenges. Yeah. So it's definitely not easy.
Not at all. Yeah.
And you were saying that we were talking about domestic violence. So Domestic Violence Awareness Month is in October, correct?
Yeah. We always want to emphasize, especially during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is October, that everybody and anybody can go through domestic violence, that it is not a certain kind of person that goes through that. It can also be domestic violence. The legal definition of it also includes anybody in your household. So that means it could even be a roommate. It could even be somebody in your college dorm. It could be somebody that you're living with, that you're partnered with. There's so many ways that it ends up manifesting. And also that everybody is susceptible, right? Like, it's one thing that I've learned from my very, very short time being here is that genuinely anybody could experience this, and that everybody deserves help. because there's no right kind of victim, and there's no person that doesn't deserve help, right? Like, everybody deserves help. And however sometimes you feel where it's like, no, I can deal with this. This is something where it's like, it's my fault. It's never your fault. I just always, when it comes to that point of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, where it's like, I always want to just emphasize all the time where it's like, it's never the person's fault. It's, you deserve help and the resources that you need. You deserve to thrive in life, and nobody deserves a life where they are suffering or being harmed or just in an unsafe situation.
Right.
So that's my big disclaimer for the day.
And we also want to emphasize that, you know, domestic violence is not only, you know, being abused physically. There's emotional, there's verbal.
Yeah.
There are all different types. And to recognize that is very, very important.
Yeah.
Because even nowadays, people have this notion that if I don't see bruises and on your body, it's not abuse.
Yeah. There's emotional, there's financial, there's sexual, there's literally every kind of abuse that exists, because at the end of the day, it's about not having control, not having power, and somebody taking your own power away from you, right?
Correct.
And there's so many ways that could happen and manifest. And honestly, there's a wonderful book called The Body Keeps the Score, right? And it's about how when a body goes through trauma, even if there's no physical bruising, the body remembers. It remembers for a lifetime. Sometimes it even changes your genetics and passes it on to your children, and it's just generational trauma. We talk about that a lot these days. That's another buzzword that is circulating. But even if you don't have bruises physically, your body remembers, and your body is physically impacted if you go through trauma. And yeah, so that's my thing, where it's like, it doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be, it can show up however, and you are still valid and still deserve help.
Yeah. So do you think in our South Asian community there is more awareness now as compared to before?
I think so. I think one of the things that I've just noticed in general is that there's just awareness, period, of everything these days.
Right.
And South Asians are definitely on the internet. I know that much. And because of that, it's really, information is just spreading like wildfire. And so I do think we are a little bit more aware than we were perhaps like 20 years ago, or before YouTube, or before Google, or because again, what the internet sometimes allows you to do is see somebody in your shoes, or see somebody that you can relate to, or hear a story that makes you not feel as alone, right?
Correct.
Because sometimes that is all you have is TikTok, all you have is Facebook, all you have is Google and a website, and you're saying, is this okay? Like, there's so many ways that humans like thrive on connection, and we always are constantly craving connection, and the internet has become one of those ways where we can connect. Even especially if you're being isolated in a space where it's very, very hard for you to find connection in the real world. So yeah, I would say we are way more aware of everything. But yeah.
So now that you've recently joined Daya, how has your conversation been with your family?
Yeah. I mean, my family, again, they're amazing. We talk politics all the time. They know I'm very political and feminist, and it's been really, really nice to talk to, even like sometimes my parents are not perfect, right? They're also people. They're also immigrants. Like, we all moved to the U.S. when we went in 2012. And so even I think what really, really inspires hope in me is that whenever I just tell them this very random, very outlandish to them statement, they're just like, what are you saying? And then when I actually talk to them about it and kind of explain it, they're on board with me. And they're 60 years old, about to be. And them even wanting to go on that journey with me and learn more about the communities that we have here, that the ideas that I'm learning about, the stories that I'm seeing, it's very, very humbling and grateful. Like, I feel really grateful to have a family like that.
Yeah.
That really supports me and really wants me to do as much good work as I can.
Yeah, you guys must be having a lot of interesting conversations around the dinner table.
Yeah, it's actually around chai. Like we have maybe 3 cups of chai.
Your mom makes great chai, I think.
She does.
Right? She does.
My dad will make chai for us too.
And you?
I do too, but I actually make it the least because I'm the youngest, so I get that privilege of just being the baby of the family.
Yeah. So they spoil you.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So, Ms. Ma, can you tell us some ways that our listeners can show better support in their daily lives?
Yeah. Again, I think it's very similar to what I've mentioned before, where it's like asking people's pronouns, putting your pronouns in your email signature at work. That's a very easy way. There's asking somebody's pronouns, sharing your own. There's going out and reading more. Asking for resources from the Montrose Center, for example, the local LGBTQ center in Houston. You could ask so many people in your community. If you know somebody who has resources, ask for resources to learn more. Learning is always my biggest tool, where it's like knowledge is power. Knowledge literally will help us through a lot, and it's not as fairly or just easily shared. Even with the internet. Sometimes it's sharing TikToks even, because that's how that's one way that we've ended up sharing so much good information, is through sharing TikToks and sharing Instagram Reel, sharing Facebook posts, and also investing materially in the communities that you want to learn more about. So it's not just a take. It's also a give. So what does that look like? It could look like anything from supporting a business that you know that is LGBTQ owned or woman owned, or just it really could mean however that you want to support materially. So all of those options exist.
A lot of options.
And you can always learn more. I honestly think learning more and being curious is the best way. Yeah.
That's great. That's, that's what you're saying is perfect. Okay. So before we wrap up this conversation, any message for our listeners, anything you'd like to, any information, anything that's, going on, or you just like to say something, your final thoughts on this topic that we have touched upon?
Yeah. I would say first, thank y'all for having me. It's been a lovely time. Also, that is here for everybody. We try to be here for everybody. We want to reach whoever needs our resources. So please contact us, even through our website, diahouston.org, and you can find multiple ways to contact us. You can also just ask me personally if you find my information for resources. If you ever need like a list of just whatever, I am happy to provide it. I am outreach at the end of the day, so I love to communicate and just provide people information, and that is my job at the end of the day. Gala tickets, again, on sale. There's very, very limited amount, so grab them while you still can. Or just donate, support us, support our mission, vision. And yeah, thanks again for being here.
So y'all got impacted pretty bad during the hurricane?
Some of us really did. We had a power outage at the office for a few days. My apartment flooded. Some people's we had everything from flooding to internet outages to power outages in our staff. But we are so blessed to be kind of back. Yeah. And one amazing thing that we got to do is that the Houston Landing identified us as one of the resources, because domestic violence actually increases during times of need and times of tension and strife and catastrophe. So they kind of identified us as one of the resources, and we even put out a list of resources. So we were very grateful to be able to do that, even in times of great chaos.
Yeah. The work has to go on.
Exactly.
No matter what, right? Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you, Ms. Bus, so much for joining me this morning. It was a really nice conversation, and I learned a lot.
I'm glad. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to more, to having you more often here. Because
I want to be back. I want to be back.
I know off air you mentioned about, maybe being an RJ.
Yeah. You know what? I'll do, yeah, on the weekends I'm free.
You're so good on radio. You're amazing.
I'm so glad.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. I hope to see you soon. Next month, hopefully.
Okay, I'll be there.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us here on Chai Time. We shall see you here, same time, same place next week. Signing off, Chai Time, 103.5 Hum FM.